Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Willie Turral here with me today. How you
Yeah.
doing?
Good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing?
We're doing great. Let's rock and roll. Give our people out there a valuable discussion about your journey on this platform. I want to take a second to say good morning to everybody out there. Thanks for joining us today. And we're going to dive straight into it. Willie, where you from?
Well, I was born down here in St. Helena. But I did a lot of my raising in Delaware. So I kind of claim both. Really, St. Helena is my home. I came back here in high school, done a large body work. Most of my body work has been down here on St. Helena Island.
Where is St. Helena?
So St. Helena Island is down in the coastal islands, down the outside rim of South Carolina. So we're close, about 45 minutes from Savannah, about 45 minutes from Charleston.
Wow. Talk to us about St. Helena. That's how you say it, correct?
Right.
Give us a little bit of the background, the history, the roots, if you will, of St. Helena.
Powerful. Listen, St. Helena has got deep roots. As a matter of fact, Penn Center, the historic grounds, was the first school for freed slaves in the nation. So St. Helena Island, and specifically St. Helena, this part that I stay at, is historic and rich grounds. They led the movement in terms of education, enlightenment, enrichment, and that really in that transition from coming out of slavery and to becoming really citizens of the United States and building this nation.
What were any of the elements, if you could recall, that were the hallmarks of education back then? You know?
Oh man. Well, I tell you what, education back then was more of a religion, in a sense that it didn't deal with just the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic, but more of the character, the content, the interaction between adults. So schools were almost extended homes, and homes were extended schools. They weren't really disconnected in the sense that they are now. So, a lot of the learning back then was more to develop pioneers and thinkers, more about creativity, imagination, ingenuity. How do you overcome your circumstance? How do you have a positive mindset regardless of the circumstance? We're talking about people who freshly got out of slavery, but yet were some of the highest ranking members of our society. Carter G. Woodson, people who graduated, Harvard, fresh out of slavery. So you got to understand that mindset then was more about movement and progress. It wasn't about pity and pain. It wasn't about what was stopping us. It was, where do we go next? How do we get there? That tough mindset, that tough type of education that really grew the leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I look back on some of the writings of people who sometimes you've got to do a little bit of research to find, but also the folks who you see every day. People like Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, people who are in that era of time. If you go back and you read their writings, the language was dense with entendres, multifaceted narratives, multifaceted commentaries on the nuance as well as the broad ideas of what life was, what life needed to be, and where we should be moving as a humanity. We need to reinstitute some of those hallmarks of education in our modern day academic institutions. How do you see that we can do some of those things of old? Talk about it.
Well, you hit it on the head, and really comes down to is what was purposeful. If you look at Martin Luther King's speech and the language in which he crafted that speech, delivered that speech, right? His anticipation of the audience was that they would be able to reciprocate that, understand that message, and they did. Right. So there has been a narrative drawn that somehow Black people were unintelligent, or that all came after desegregation. And although desegregation was a great movement in terms of civil rights, it was the most detrimental and the worst thing that ever happened to Black education because of how desegregation was rolled out. It wasn't like we did a 50-50 swap, right? We just shut down all the Black schools. We fired all the Black principals. We changed the ideology of these kids growing up through the system, right? So now there's this narrative that has been played out for so long that somehow African Americans were less than, in the academic nature. We saw this played out in sports where for a while Black folks wasn't quarterbacks because they couldn't think like, that was a narrative that was crafted up it was fabricated. It was foolishness. You know what I'm saying? And in actuality, Black folks have always strived. If you look at Carter G, if you look at Du Bois, if you look at Booker T, look how they talk, look how they walk. The narrative was written out so that the youth could follow it. But in actuality, fresh out of slavery, we're talking about some of the most well-dressed, articulated, talking, well-mannered African Americans that we've had in our society. So we have to really just get away from the negative narratives. We have to stop creating that negative ceiling. It's nothing really to change. You understand? It's nothing that needs to happen inside a Black mind to close a gap, but just to stop putting that gap there, to stop putting that divide there, and recreate the structures in which build the excellence. Have a kid go through a school and see Black educators, see Black principals, see Black leadership, be taught how to love himself, crafted into embracing himself. He's going to do just fine. You can't ever kill a spirit of a kid and expect that they're going to come out on top educationally. So if anything needs to be done, we need to get people back into schools taking care of these kids that really love and nurture the kids, because once a kid has everything he needs in terms of nurture, he's going to develop into those things that we used to see that we just won't see anymore while a kid is not being motivated or not being really engaged into the learning process or really engaged into the process of learning himself.
I'm going to say this one time and one time only. Let's go. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, tag somebody else, get them into this conversation. Text somebody else, get them into this conversation. Like, subscribe. Let's generate more organic genius. This is what Willie is talking about. I love how you said that we have to craft students into people who know how to love themselves. Once you begin to love yourself, you get into a perpetual giving relationship with the universe, with your physical higher counsel, and with your spiritual higher counsel.
Yep.
Once you begin to learn, you get crafted into loving yourself. You get permission for access to wisdom from the ethers of the universe.
Yep.
You start inventing things again. You start creating a world that makes sense to you again. Everything that we do, it goes back down to our infrastructure, our mental infrastructure, our spiritual infrastructure. That scaffolding is constantly being built. Look at the structure of DNA. It looks like a scaffolding, to be simple. That scaffolding has a lot of artificial parts to it that need to be removed and that need to be replaced with hallmarks of self-confidence, ingenuity, positive self-talk, positive images, positive media. And that's what we're doing right here today. We have a comment in the building. Let's see what somebody says. Hazel Bolden says 100% stamp on that. Prayer sign stamp on that. Willie, give me one example of what we can do in our schools and our communities and our families today that would resemble the gravity of teaching that happened in a place like St. Helena. What's one thing we can do?
Oh man, exploration.
Boom.
I think you said it the best. And to rephrase it, recraft that. You look at the root words of education, right? Educat, right? It means to educe from within, right? So in the principle of education, if you look at all these design, all these inventions around us, we weren't taught an invention, right? To invent something means it's ingenious, it's brand new, ingenuity, right? So all these things that we got and we enjoy is over the thought process or the mind or the invention of somebody. That comes from creativity. So the biggest thing we can start doing is stop trying to force feed education. Education is not me telling you a bunch of facts. That's not education. That's remembrance. You know, what we need to start doing is figuring out what can we get out of these kids? What can we get out of these people? There's a lot of information that's inside of the classroom that dies. There are kids that have great ideas that might be the next invention, might be the next mode of transportation, might be the next drug that we use to cure ourselves. But those inventions never make it out of elementary school because we're growing kids in such a way that if they have an invention, we don't ever bring it to light. A lot of these things that we start at 18 is horrible. These kids are ready to be economic factors. These kids are ready to create and do things, but we stop them. We pigeonhole them. Now, once you restrain them for 6 or 7 years, then they get to 18 and we wonder why they don't want to do anything anymore. You know what I'm saying? But they were ready to go at middle school. So my thing is change your mindset. If we could do anything, stop let's change the visual landscape of how we look at children and how we look at life, because we're all children. Essentially, unless you metamorph to something, you're the same child that you started with, right? You going through these stages. You know very well at 11 and 12 and 13, there was things that you started wanting to do, to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. We need to start helping these kids get these ideas out. We need to start supporting the ideas of these children. So at home, one thing that you definitely can do is create, ask questions like, what can you invent? What can you do new? What do you want to show me? And a lot of times, if you just ask that question, like, what do you want to show me? You working on something, man, you'll be there all day. They'll take you to that wonderful world they call a room. You'll see all the cut up paper that you yell about. They was making some kind of paper plane confetti that they were, you know what I'm saying? This hole in the wall that you're probably upset about. But if you take a second, there was something behind that where you might be able to create the next engineer. You might be able to foster that next level of learning. So that's what it is. Let's start seeing what we can pull out instead of always trying to push in.
Absolutely. There's a difference between education and realization. The process of developing an embryo is intricate, is detailed, is deep. For most, it's impossible to totally understand. None of us really totally understand how an embryo grows into a human person, but we know that it's a miracle. The only person who was there for that entire ride is the person who's born. And what that qualifies is that you have your own unique fingerprint. You have your own unique hair pattern. You have your own unique eyeballs. You have your own unique heart. Everything about you is unique. We've got to crystallize the reality that everybody has something unique that can potentially come out of them, because they were the only ones who were there for the ride of their generation,
right?
Of their origin. They were the only ones who listened to the pulse of their mother and father to build their eyes, their organs, their body, their skin. They're the only one that heard the directions from the universe, only them.
Right.
And so we've got to engage in the reality that each and every person has a distinct invention that can come out of them. And we're not always talking about something like a new gadget. We're not asking you to go out there and be the next George Washington Carver. We're saying that you have an opportunity to be unique, and that one unique person can continue to help the landscape that we live in. We gain so much value when you are the authentic Willie Turral, because you realize what it means to be Willie Turral, as opposed to you learning what it means to be a man and spending your life trying to emulate that what you think. So there's a difference between being a mockery of others and being yourself. And that difference is the one that we cannot miss. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And, I think about, you see light bulbs, if you want all the light bulbs to shine the same brightness, you're going to have to dim some, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to dim some. And that's the problem in school. It's the same thing. Schools are created to be a factory. We know that. They're created during World War II. Like they're set up like a factory line, right? And so you don't send Coca-Cola through the factory line and expect Sprite.
That's right.
Whatever you send through is what you're gonna get. And whenever you keep sending something through, you keep getting the same result. That's how your factory is designed to produce that product. So you're absolutely right. Like it comes a time when people have to, teachers, educators, parents have to really start practicing that uniqueness, because a lot of us assimilate so much that we don't ever shine our own light. So our kids don't understand how to be unique because they've never seen us move in our uniqueness. You know what I'm saying? And you see it in the education so much. Like I feel for these kids sometimes. Sometimes you have a little black kid in the class who is absolutely the smartest kid in this class, but you're not judging his genius. You understand? You're judging his genius by this guy's genius. He's definitely smarter than these kids, quicker on, you know what I'm saying? He's a thinker, but you're not running his test. So when he gets his grades back, it says F and D. Then he starts showing you how smart he is. He does it by fooling the teacher. I've seen, you know what I'm saying? You get teachers that get mad, students that go to hack you fooling them. That's his genius though. He's smart. He got to show you that he's smart because you keep telling him he's dumb. And you wonder why he's acting out. So it got to get a point. Like if you judge a fish by his ability to climb trees, the fishes always think he's a loser. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get to developing a model that allows kids to exercise their uniqueness, and also modeling that ourselves. How are we displaying our uniqueness to our children? How are we shining our light? Because when we turn ours on, it lets them know, okay, I can turn mine on too.
Let's continue to provide these types of keys today. What is the light? What is the light, and how can we establish a universal understanding of the light? Define the light for us so that we can use it going forward.
So when I say light, what I'm really talking about is what makes you uniquely you, right? All of us, there's an essence in all of us. And you talked about the embryo. There's a uniqueness in all of us. Certainly, even if you have my same name, you would not ever be me, because my set of circumstances, my set of realities, how I constructed life is unique to me. That's my light. Whatever it is that I feel my calling, that's my light. A lot of us are walking a way that we're not called to walk. We know this. We begrudgingly move this way all the time. We know good and well this is what calls me, but we never moved there. You understand? So then we're walking in the dark. We haven't turned on our light. So when you turn on your light, you activate what is you. It's not an economic thing. It's not an emotional thing. It's not even a social thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's what makes you you. You got to turn that on. It doesn't, like you said, it's not necessarily like an idea, a gadget. It is your spirit. It is what you are. It is who you are as a kid before you started to be this way or that way. Before you started to emulate this song or that person. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that is uniquely you turn that on. And that right there, everybody recognizes. It's that energy that if you see your friend that you haven't seen in 5 years, that little feeling you get right before you see him, and you say, "Oh, that's my boy." That's it right there. Mm-hmm. It's that feeling, that authenticity that you're looking for.
When you speak the way that you speak, I'm encouraged to believe that each and every one of us is a star. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. You came in this world under overwhelming circumstances.
That's right.
As the first mechanism of life, you won a race. Anybody who's in this world, however they arrive, they are the winner of the first race. They won that one. They beat every other opportunity to that egg to fertilize and make their way here. They're a winner. You can't even come into this life unless you're a winner. You can't even get to this side unless you're a winner. So you're a winner when you came. You're part of this I won the first race club. That gives you unlimited pass. You could run as many races as you want to run until you win the next one. By certain though, the only way you made it to this side is because you won. That makes you a winner. Right. Everybody's a star. Everybody's a genius, because your genius is your uniqueness, and nobody can remove that from you. That's what the genius is. It's you.
What I hear you saying is that we have to have a society, or at least a community, that grows into a society that establishes that if you and I are in the same room, you and I are both number one. We're not number one and number two. Mm. If there's 5 of us in a room, we're not first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place. We are number one, number one, number one, number one, and number one. Mm-hmm. And we can all agree on that type of an expectation, given the biological reality that we were winners of our own race.
Right. Right.
How do we make this the type of conversation that doesn't sound abstract or unattainable?
Okay. It's very attainable and it's very easy to understand. When anybody kind of thinks of a race, they think about you being lined up, on some starting block. Everybody take off at the same time, and then we assign, first, second, third, fourth in that order. Life doesn't manifest in that way, because success is not measured by where you're at. Success is measured by where you travel. You understand?
That's right.
So in life, you could be born into circumstances where making it to a small trailer is very successful. You understand? You could be born into circumstances where making it to a mansion is not very successful at all. You understand? So success is defined uniquely by your circumstance. Only you can define yourself success. So our ideologies of this race, that's a comparative analysis. That's not the race that we're in life. Because if you lost 100, did you run me in the hurdles yet? Okay, did we run the hurdles? Did you get me in the shot put? Okay, so my race is I'm going to keep going until I'm number one, until I find my lane to run in, right, my stroke of genius. And that's how life is. When you get together, you can only be number one, because even if I'm number two, it's the first time I've crossed this finish line. That's so it's right, number one for me. Exactly. When I get in a room, it's not about 1, 2, and 3. I'm looking at flour, water, eggs. Let's make a pie. You understand what I'm saying? 100%. If the flour's number one and the eggs don't matter, how we bake? If the eggs is more important and the milk don't matter, how we get pan? So we all know that, like a recipe, I don't care if it's just a little sprinkle of my greatness and a whole pound of yours. Just understand, as long as I fit in this recipe, I've done my job. I'm equally as important, because you can't make the pie even without the 2 eggs, even without the teaspoon. I'm just as important. We got to look at our impact on the process, not our quantity in the process. Don't look at the amount of money in your bank account. Look at the impact of what you did with it. Don't look at the amount, look at the impact. We start looking at the numbers, we can get jaded. If you're born with $1 million and die with $1 million, you didn't make no progress. I don't see you didn't make no progress. If you was born with $0 and died with 20, you're 20 times more successful than the millionaire.
Absolutely. This is where we need to make a tangible change in our paradigm. That journey that you talked about, that you called the race, we've got to begin to get credit for that journey. Mm-hmm. The journey of you going from an embryo to a human being. Mm-hmm. We've got to get credit for that journey. See, this is the missing link right here. I love the fact that you are the core of a conversation that's bringing these points out for our communities today. Mm-hmm. We've got to get credit for that journey right there. When you're born, it can't be, oh, you're nothing, you're an empty jug, and now you need to be filled with right, the rules, the ideas, the books, the knowledge of planet Earth. Because it's that paradigm which is causing an almost allergic reaction by people who are in tune with their inherent genius. Mm-hmm. And so we need credit for that journey. 0 is not 0. 0 is the case of my journey. 0 is the epitome of my birth. 0 represents 9 months. For some people 7, for some people 6, right? But there is time that we are not getting credit for, which is responsible for our genius. And I think that is the problem. See, on your birthday, you're not 0 years old.
Right.
Right? You're almost 1 year old.
Right.
And it's that gap right there. That piece right there. The whole time that your brain and your heart was developed, that you're not getting credit for. You're not getting no credit for your brain. You're not getting credit for your heart. You're not getting credit for the way you see things. None of that. And you're being sent out into the world without a conversation, without an understanding about how you're already a star, about how you're already a genius. You already have faculties that you need to use.
Facts.
You get none of that orientation.
Facts.
And then you go out into a world where potentially people think that you are less than because of the way that you look, mm-hmm, right? And not just because you're black, but because you're different.
Right.
Because you're Asian, because you're Hispanic, because you have blonde hair and blue eyes in a community where all the other white people have brown hair and dark brown eyes.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
Because you're the other. And it's so difficult to deal with being the other when you get no credit.
And you said it. If coming into life, right, we should be full. You understand? Like that is everything. Like we getting no credit for the most important part of this whole journey. That's it. We got here. That's the balloon's supposed to go up celebration. The fact that if I have $1 million and I arrive and somebody says, well, that doesn't, that don't count. That's zero. How am I supposed to be motivated to go out and do more when I've done so much? You said that doesn't count, and that's the problem. And you got people that feel like zeros, right? And you're not a zero. When you come here, you're already in the positive. You know what I'm saying? You already won. You're already one up.
Hold up. I don't know if you all have taxis there in St. Helena, and I know taxis are out of date now because of Uber and other things like that. But have you ever, anybody out there ever, and I'm looking for comments, questions in the chat as well. Have you ever ordered a taxi and when the taxi gets there, it already got like $2 or $3 on a meter already? As soon as you hop in, it's already got a amount there that you're already going to have to pay. It's like a base price because the taxi, he had to leave from wherever he was at in order to arrive at your destination. That credit is what we are trying to assimilate into society on this 1 hour episode of America's Next Motivator. We need credit for our arrival. We can feel when we're not getting credit for our arrival. All throughout the course of your life, you're looking for that credit. The credit for your arrival, the credit for your existence. Now, when we look at other more real ways to put this paradigm into our everyday lives, it means that the young man walking down the street, no matter what you think he lacks, he automatically deserves a certain amount of credit. Doesn't matter if he's got a hoodie on, doesn't matter if his pants are sagging, doesn't matter if he's got a suit on. He gets a certain amount of credit. The homeless man standing on the corner gets a certain amount of credit. Anybody who you see with your two eyes gets a certain amount of credit. See, right now we say, oh, you're nothing, you're nobody, right? And we leave it at that. We got to change that. Go ahead.
When you said that sparked something in me. Imagine that paradigm shift, right?
That's right.
Imagine all this foolishness we have across the planet and everybody engaging in all the destruction, the hatred, the negative things, everybody engaging it. They're all part of this same club we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So you could gang off and section off any way you want. But we have gotten away fundamentally from understanding that we are all part of this same club called life. That's what we're talking about, celebrating the fact that you're alive, that you came into existence. And if we were to celebrate that as we should, embrace that as the holiday that it should be. Wow. Automatically, instead of me seeing your gang or your skin color or your nationality or your origin or your cultural difference, or me in a classroom as a white educator seeing you as or vice versa, what if I saw you as that, a human being, part of the same club I belong to? Oh man, you're here. Oh, you're a winner. You made it. We don't ever talk to kids like that. Why don't we ever say, hey man, wow, that's awesome. What's awesome? You're here. You made it. Like, that's crazy. We don't do that. We wait. You got to be 30 years old with 2 master's degrees in the house for anybody to give you some love and say you made it somewhere. You know what I'm saying? We're having to embrace existence. If we could change our paradigm and embrace that, how many things will we take care of? Right? How many things will we wash away when we're all part? Man, we ain't gotta be racist, bro. We in the same club. What club? You alive? I'm alive. We exist.
Right. That's right. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are having an extremely dynamic conversation. This man, Willie Turral, is a very wise man, and the conversation that we're having today should be shared. It should be shared. It should be embraced. It should be dissected, evaluated, taken apart. We're going to be right back after a brief message. Everybody sit tight. America's Next Motivator. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. Willie, how you feeling out there?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. Listen, part of the I'm Here Club. So happy to be live for sure.
You know, so many people out there. And I gotta say, even though I love having conversations about people that look like you and I, what you might call Black people, African Americans, Negroes from the Caribbean, here in America, out there in Africa. I also like to establish that the truth is universal.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about our realities, the I'm Here Club, the credit for the star that you are as a result of the journey that you went on to become born, this is for everybody. Each and every soul on planet Earth wins in this conversation. Doesn't take too much looking for you to find somebody who's under a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety, because they're just not getting credit for who they really are. They're not getting credit. Now, to your point, Willie, before we went to break, you talked about, how different our world would be if we just said, hey, listen, I'm going to approach you as if I'm so happy that you're here. Not just because you walked into the building, but because you were born, which was a major accomplishment. You're an achiever. Mm-hmm. I've seen, for those people who don't know, I spent years of my life in foster care. Before that, I had challenges in my life, which resulted in me going into foster care. But I was also adopted, which elevated my life and showed me new realities. And so I got to see a broad spectrum of the condition of humanity, where it is and where it can go. And I'm telling you from firsthand experience, the relief, the instant relief that you get when you walk into a classroom of young people and you say, you know what? Y'all right. Y'all are stars.
All right.
You guessed it. Each and every one of you is number one, right? It's like, wow, you get it. They say the truth can set you free. Willie, what do you do today? What is the work that you're engaged in today?
So right now I'm community building. I got a CEO that my boy Kamal Wigfall, Gullah Geechee Initiative Foundation. So I'm working with him. We're in the community development, restoring tutoring programs for the kids. On side of that, I got Carter G Academy. It's a charter school that we opened up down here in South Carolina. So we're in the process of getting that started. And I'm in law school, so just getting prepared to understand all the legal arguments and foundations and doctrines needed to make sure that all the other nonprofits and things that we're doing, we got the proper legal support, go through the proper channels to really get something set up that's going to be long and withstanding. We're actually trying to create a different model of education. So the school that we're working on, Carter G Academy of Excellence, it's going to be really the first school I've seen in my area that started by misters, predominantly ran by misters, staff majority staffed by the proper ratios of the demographics. I say that because the school that we started, I don't want anybody to think that it's going to be limited. We're branching out, but it's all about having the demographics represent the community. So I'm a member of the Call Me Mr. program. It stands for Men Inspiring Students Towards Effective Role Models. So shout out to the Call Me Mr. program. Dedicated servant leaders. So we go out here, the Call Me Mr. program. We seek to train, expose, and develop Black male educators. So it's programs they got in colleges across the nation, starting on Clemson University. Proud member of the Call Me Mr. program. Glad to be part of that. And so me and my Call Me Mr. brothers down here in South Carolina have actually got together to start this project. So it's a powerful thing when you think about 5 former male educators, still male educators, coming from the Call Me Mr. program through the school, putting in the service hours, doing the student learning, becoming excellent. 3 of them are teachers of the years in different schools. multiple degrees, but it's just powerful to see all them brothers like just come together, do what they need to do, and then sit down at the table and say, okay, we've done great. How do we do more? How do we stop complaining about what we see around us? How do we fix it? How do we change it? We say we need a new model. And so we're creating a new model of education. It's not how you would generally think kids should be educated. And when you look at the Charter School Act, it started in 1995. The whole point of the act was to close the gap between underperforming and performing kids, right? So essentially between minority kids and white kids, you know what I'm saying? Like to be honest, if we're going to close the gap and those where the gap numbers lie, then that's what the data says. But then if you look around in Beaufort County, every charter school that we have is predominantly white. Their African-American population or minority population is less than 4 or 5%. So why do we have a charter school act that's came into law that takes away funds from public schools to help Black kids and minority kids catch the gap up, yet we open these schools and they're only catering to white kids? And sometimes, a lot of times, they kick a Black kid out the system after enrollment, stealing funds from the public school. Then that kid has to go. So listen, you could cry about those things and you can acknowledge those things. You can say, oh man, that's horrible. But then you get to a point where you say, if I'm not doing anything, I'm part of the problem. And so sure. I brought him to the table and said, listen, that was my goal coming in, to open a charter school. I kept preaching it. I preached it as I preached it all the way through graduation. I preached it as I started the school. I preached it while I was in the building. I was recruiting. I was telling people, hey, listen, we get to charter school. We need you to come work for me. So it was all, that's been the mission. It was something that was started by my elders in my community. They started a school called St. Helena Gullah International Academy. St. Helena Gullah International Academy. They started this school. They had the lesson plans. Everything was set to go. And long story short, I mean, they was choked out. They were strangled out. They was cut away from the resource. And so I saw my elders as I was coming through with getting my education, to determining what I wanted to do. I saw that torch on the ground. I said, you know what? I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna take that to the finish line. And I'm gonna open up a charter school down here on this island that's gonna, like we talked about earlier, get back to those fundamental principles, and it's gonna produce a product. At the end of the day, if all these kids that look the same way are coming out and they're failing, the kids aren't failing in school. The school is failing the kids. Like that. Right. That's the only way to be at this point. Like, you can't have everybody coming out and you keep saying it's there's no such thing as an achievement gap. There's an opportunity gap. There's an empathy gap. You know what I'm saying? There's a gap in the school's ability to teach these kids. The kids aren't failing. The schools are. The schools are failing to prepare these kids and to reach these kids. And we're going to change the model in that. We had great success in our classroom. And so we're going to bring that to a school model. And it's our hope that people to look in, like, look, come in, bring your eyes to the school and see the change in these kids, see the difference of how we approach education, and then take that and hopefully change the model of education.
Absolutely. What you're saying is absolutely huge. Is commendable, is phenomenal, is pioneering, and it's the correct thing to do. And that's just to put it plainly and to be basic about it. We got comments coming into the building. Yolanda Riley said hello, and Azel Bolden still hearing this conversation. We thank you, Azel. Thank you to everybody who's in the building. Patrick, Yolanda, Azel, and everybody who we cannot see for being here and a part of this discussion. Because what we are putting inside of this hour is an extremely helpful perspective on what we need to do as a humanity. Now, when you look at different cultures that tend to be successful, it seems like they have cultural and ethnic rites of passage that help them to understand who they are so firmly that they're able to grasp the academics that are attached onto that, and they can go out there and become high achievers. When you look at our communities and schools, and I'm talking about Black people, African-American people, however it's comfortable for you to look at them, we're looking at young people who are not getting the cultural and ethnic rites of passage that they need to really become attached to the academics and then go out there and be high achievers. So what I look for from someone like you, Willie, is willingness to change the paradigm of what it means to be Black, change the paradigm of what it means to be a melanated individual, because that is the information, that is the body of work, the knowledge that people need in order to attach to the academics. It's like, I need you to explain to me what it means for me to be Black.
Right.
Because when I look at history and I'm reminded of the roots, and I'm reminded of, whether it be through 12 Years a Slave or Django or whatever is popular, I'm reminded that what it means to be Black is to be up against adversity. And so now I'm gonna usurp that sense of adversity, and I'm gonna feel like I got this huge weight on my shoulders called being Black. And what I need from you as an educator or leader, parent, is to help me understand why being Black is a positive as opposed to a bad thing. And so let's use this conversation to reevaluate and re-educate people on what it means to be Black or melanated. Go ahead.
Man, listen, so powerful, so deep. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's get to it. This idea of Black has been fabricated by white.
Let's go.
Let's be real.
And it's been perpetuated by other Black people as well.
Perpetuated by ignorance.
There you go.
So let's get into it.
Let's go.
Because there's a definite shift in the messages and the culture of Black people, and it really goes back to desegregation.
Okay.
If you look at even the original rappers and what they were rapping about, a lot of it was political, a lot of it was community, a lot of it was awareness, right? Once high power execs got a chance to see the power of this music, they bought the sound. They bought the sound. We heard we look at the slum films back in the day, right? We look at the Foxy Brown, the film.
Exploitation film.
Exploitation, black exploitation, what they used to say, black exploitation.
Yep.
We look at how we crafted the narrative of Black. I tell my kids all the time, you see these kids, and I'm like, whoa, are you going to concerts? The kids, I'm asking kids, you go to concerts? Did you buy any CDs? No. How's this your favorite rapper? Who is supporting your favorite rapper that all these 10 and 9 and 8-year-old kids who don't have a job, who's not going to concerts, how are they being supported? Who determines which song should even be played at such a high level? Who determines what message should be played? The message of Black has been fabricated to us. It's been given to us. It's been hand-fed to us. And it's been done so long, and we couldn't keep up. It's like advertisement. If I'm going word of mouth and I'm saying, hey, look, Black, you act right, you do the right thing, and you are blasting this thing on social media, it's a campaign. But the people who are campaigning for righteousness and truth, they didn't have the funds and resources. It was word of mouth, house to house. So you got a lot of Black people that maintain their sense. You got a lot of Black people that maintain the rites of passage. But when you systematically attack the Black family, when you create programs called WIC, women, infant, children, I don't hear no men in there. When you create programs like Section 8 that say you can stay in this house for free as long as you ain't got no man in here, when you have programs that are designed to separate households, when you have programs that's designed to do that, and you remove from leadership, then you start pushing your agenda. Right. It's a ceiling. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're gonna start to embody that. If people say, "Whoa," because I guess y'all been asleep. The Black has never changed unless you've been away from Black leadership. And it happens in the foster home. It happens in the broken home. It happens to the kids that need us the most. When they turn around to have an example, the only example that's out there is the one that media has put out there. That's sagging pants, angry at, you got to work twice as hard. You don't have to work twice as hard. You just have to do your best. That's simple. This stuff that we tell these kids, you got to do that is part of the mental brainwashing. That creates that ceiling that you have for yourself. It's not real. You don't have to do anything extra. You just have to be you. That's all that's necessary. The rest of that is fabricated. It's all lies. We got to, like you said, we got to start speaking the truth to these kids. And we got to start pushing our message. As aggressive as they are with the negative rap, that is set to detract. And I find it funny because you got a lot of rappers who's probably more responsible for incarceration rates than anybody else. But when the movement, when the fling goes there, they become woke. You can't go from inspiring kids to sell coke and get locked up to being woke. And it don't work like that. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? That brings me to my next point. And I know we only have an hour show. And so sometimes I have to bend and flex a particular moment. In this case, we are reevaluating Blackness in order to cover numerous corners. so that people can walk away with a new perspective on the conversation. Now, when we educate our people in the worldwide on what it means to be Black, we have a positive impact on everybody's future. In the beginning of this conversation, we talked about how everybody's a star. And if you don't engage in that star power, we're raising awareness about the karma, the consequences of not engaging in that star power. See, right now, the whole world is kind of neutral. If you realize that it's powerful to be Black, you'll become a star, a celebrity, a member of high society, and everybody's going to love you. If you don't realize the power, the absolute power of what it means to be a melanated individual, there's no guarantee somebody's going to swoop in and save you with the idea, the reality of that which you truly are, which is an individual who possesses melanin. And so what we're doing in this conversation is we're making it universal, and we're making it free and available, that there is a star power that you need to access by you being a melanated individual, a Black individual, brown individual, however you want to term it. In fact, everybody has a little bit of melanin in them. But when you don't engage the melanin that you have, there are consequences for that. Whether you grow up with a resentment for yourself or others, because people like to say, well, Black people are hurting Black people so much, it's not about anybody else. What we're raising awareness about today is the consequences that we all face for not engaging in the reality that we have an abundance of melanin in humanity. Melanin is our connection to the cosmos. It's our connection to the universe. And they say, oh, I hear my ancestors talking to me. I hear my ancestors speaking through me. It's the melanin that is the mechanism for your spirits, your ancestors, your family members, your relatives to speak through you. And so we've all got to take accountability for the melanin that we have. There's going to be consequences if we don't, and there's going to be consequences if we do. But it's that mechanism right there that we need to make universal. We have melanin that we need to be accountable for. The melanin is the holder of the colors of life. And so in an institution that's going to be different from all the other institutions that are out there, we've got to talk about melanin. We got to say it plain. We got to create a new definition. A law student like you, it'll be amazing if you could draft something in between 8 and 9 sentences that is lawful, that is objective and correct, that reestablishes what Blackness is, to be adopted by our institutions, our academic organizations, foster care agencies. Everybody needs a new piece of paper with a comment on it about what Blackness is, so that we can all get a new idea of how to treat Black people. And I'm not talking about a nebulous comment like treat us better because we're Black. I'm talking about something specific, like how Blackness contains life energy. We are containers of life energy. And so if you're going to treat us right, you need to expand that energy into an idea that energy is colors. How are you treating the red in me? That's a color. How are you treating the yellow in me? How are you treating the blue in me? How are you treating the orange in me? How are you treating the brown in me? On down the line. If we are not itemizing it, then it can't be tangible. So I'm not saying treat me different because I'm Black. I'm saying teach me what it means to be Black, which is that I'm a holder of energy of life, and I need to be accountable for the colors I possess. Go ahead.
I think you said it best. And how about we get to the truth? How about we get to the truth of things? Because if we're honest, we've already proven that all life originates in Africa. And so we heard that concept, but we throw it around loosely. Let's like you said, let's quantify it. Let's put it to paper, because the Black woman contains every genome, even the white gene. So when you look at white, yellow, green, blue, we're all talking shades of Black, even white. You're not translucent. You're not transparent. You're a shade of Black. You come from Black too. If you want to keep it real, let's stop lying. White folks come from Black folks, and yellow folks come from Black folks, and green folks come from Black folks, and Black folks come from Black folks, because all folks come from the same maternal haplogroup out of Africa. So if you want to get real, let's reclassify everybody as Africans. Let's change the narrative. Let's talk truth. So if you're Chinese, you're just a Chinese African, or you're a European African, or you're African. What? But everybody's an African. And see, that's the problem. We changed what was important. We switched the order. We try to switch the map. We try to flip the map and change the balance. But Black folks don't originate from white people. That's the truth. That's the facts. But white folks do originate from Black people. That's the facts. So yes, you can quantify that because your Blackness, it is your uniqueness as well as your whiteness, and all of it is shades of Africans. All of you, everybody listening, everybody alive right now is an African.
That's right.
Like it or not, accept it or not, you are an African. Period. If you don't think so, you just arguing a moot point.
Let's take it a step further and make it even more palatable. We know that Africa wasn't originally called Africa. And so that's why we have conversations about melanin, which is a scientific term, it's verifiable, look upable. Everybody comes from melanin. Out of melanin comes all shades of humanity.
Correct.
So when you say everybody's life, everybody's existence is important, what you're saying in an unscientific way is that everybody has something in common. That which we all have in common is melanin. The idea that you and I, as let's say if I was white and you were Black, are terribly, terribly, terribly different is a mistake. Opposite but inverse would be more like it. But what white people and Black people got to understand is this. If I'm Black, I am the living container of the whole entire spectrum of life. That's all. I'm the whole thing. I'm the outside and the inside of the 8-ball. As a what you would call white individual, you are part of the inside of that 8-ball. Right. If the inside of the 8-ball could be exposed, that whiteness is what you are. And melanin allows you to be that phenotype as well. Mm-hmm. We are the insides and the outsides of one another. When I see a white person, that white person came from the inside of me. You are a reflection of the inside of me. It's like if I have a container, let's say this container represents a melanated individual. What you call a white person will be all of the insides of this container right here. Mm-hmm. And so it's possible that you and I are equal, but inversely as powerful as one another. Mm-hmm. What tears us apart is the fact that we've got to be different. Right. We've got to understand the relationship between Blackness and whiteness, darkness and lightness, and accept the reality that light comes out of the dark. You just can't be light and you just can't be dark. Black people are responsible for exuding their light. You just can't be Black and no light. In other words, you just can't be Black and no positivity is coming out of your life. What people want us to realize as Black people is that the worst person on planet Earth to be indignant and ignorant is a Black person, because the Black person has a star power that they are paying the consequences of not using. Nobody knows how to treat you wrong like your fellow person. They know your soft spot. They know your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. We got to be accountable for that. What you call white people have to be accountable for the relationship that they have with us, the symbiotic relationship that they have with us, which cannot be taken away.
It can't.
We're in a relationship.
We like it or not. Like it or not.
We're in a relationship.
And you know what's crazy? I'm gonna go. Let's be honest. And maybe I like to get comments or feedback on this. Because I feel like in this whole cosmos situation, right, you got this internal conflict between Black people and white people, which I feel like, in a sense, they are one of the most closely related groups. Yeah. And journey with me. Everywhere you go and see Black people, you see white people.
We got
and everywhere you go and see white people,
we got 30 seconds left.
You see Black people. So, listen, I'm telling you, I appreciate the show, but listen, powerful things to think of. I just want to say that, once we start embracing the truth, when we start embracing the truth, not our truth, but what is true, finding our unique identity, and expressing those things uniquely to our children, the growth is going to be limitless.
Each and every one of us has the potential and the opportunity to be a giant, an absolute giant. What it means to be human is much bigger than your physical stature. And that's what Willie and I are trying to say today.
Yep.
What it means to be human is so much more than your physical body. And we've got to unite there and what it means to be human, as opposed to what we look like, where we live, and how much money is in our pocket. The value is in what we actually are when you take a microscopic look at the reality of things. Hey, Willie, I want to let you know that we are respecting you today. We're giving you your respect today while you're still living. Ladies and gentlemen, get your crown emojis ready, because we are giving you your crown today. Yep. The comments that you made, the flame that you ignited, we appreciate. We're giving you a crown today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crowns into the chat. We are letting you know, Willie, letting the world know that you, Willie Turral, are America's next motivator.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by today, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do is stop by and pick it up.